We ready? We good? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
What are we talking about?
Um,
You just jumped in here. I love it.
we can talk about anything.
What are we talking about?
Let's talk about using your experience
Yeah.
and not being nervous and just doing things.
Okay. So, Jessica,
Yeah.
how do you use your experience?
Yeah. So I have had tons of different jobs in my life.
And quite different.
Quite different. And that's what I had to figure out. So I went back to school for a third career. And when I got out of school, I had to figure out how I was going to get a job as a developer being a hairdresser. So I had to figure out what I was going to tell people when they say, well, you don't have any experience. Why do you want to work here? Why would I hire you? And I figured out.
Were those things that ever really got said? Or was that a narrative that you made up?
They have, not like that, but they were said, yeah.
Sure.
Like, why are you right for this job? Why should we hire you, kind of thing. Definitely was said.
Are those the right questions to ask?
Absolutely not.
Why do you say that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it made me figure out how to be where I am now. So I don't think I was in any place to accept those kind of questions at that point in my life. But I could now.
So how did you go through that process of hairdresser to developer of how did you put a new bow on yourself?
So I kind of looked at all the jobs that I've had. I looked at everything I do outside of my work, and I tried to find a common thread. There were a lot of them. I always have dealt with people. I've always done customer service. But the common thread that I found was problem solving.
Okay.
So when somebody comes into the salon, sits down, they say, hey, I want this picture, and they have the opposite kind of hair, I'm not going to give you that
This is every
picture.
time I sit down.
So I had to figure out how to tell this person that's not really going to work without offending them, without, them being mad and still, cutting their hair. So I was like, okay, problem solving. So development, yep, problem solving. Obviously, there's the code problems.
Did you know you wanted to be a developer? Like, when did you start this process? Was this in the middle of?
The recession hit in 2009.
I was going to say, which one?
Yeah, when I was a hairdresser and I couldn't pay my bills.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, I don't have a college degree. So I'm like, I got to go back to school. So I went back for business just to get a degree. I'm like, well, this is dumb. I don't want to do this. And then I went for marketing to UWM. And I was like, oh, this is not like making ads and advertising, because that's what I thought it was.
Sure.
But I loved my database class. So I went to my teacher and I was like, what do? I don't like this, but I love your class. And he sent me over to the School of Information Studies.
So do you feel like school, as somebody who has a child now where we're shopping schools, and one, at the age of 17, you don't really know what you want to do.
Nope.
I might even argue at the age of 47, I'm not even sure I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Do you feel like school got you dialed in, or did you get you dialed in at school?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say one wouldn't have happened without the other.
Okay.
So I was at a point in my life where I was older. I was 28 when I went back to school. So I had a little bit of life experience. So I was much more dedicated to figuring that out. Yeah, much more committed. But if I wouldn't have gone back to school, I never would have known that that's what I liked.
Were the school dollars, was the bill the thing that made you committed?
No.
You made you committed.
Yeah.
I
I don't care about money.
Well, I mean, it's a fair question, right?
Yeah,
School's
for
expensive, so if you're just doing it because of the bill and you think faster I get to a resolution, the less I have to pay.
Well, I mean, if we're going real deep, my dad passed away the first day that I went to school. So that kind of motivated me because the last thing that we talked about was me going back to school.
In what regards? What's the motivation? Like, how was school the answer?
He was sick for 4 years, so we rebuilt our relationship, talked about everything that's happened in my life, all the ways that I've messed up, all that stuff, because I have a past.
Well, let's go, Jessica.
And, we had just talked about finishing things, and I got kicked out of college the first time, but they saved me by not getting me red flagged to come back. So it was just something that, I was in the middle of going to school, not liking it. It was something that we had talked about and had a bond about. And so it was like, I'm going to do this. And it was the day before he passed and I wasn't going to go. I'm like, I'm not leaving you. And he's like, yes, you are. So I went to school.
Things happen for a reason.
Yep.
The dots connect.
Yep, for sure.
So you figure it out, and then you get into the workforce.
Yeah.
Yeah. And?
Well, when I graduated, I wanted to be a mobile app developer.
As did everybody at that time.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. The new hotness.
Yep. So that was my thing, and I got a job working for a startup that I worked at for 2 days because I figured out that it was not like a real company and that was not going to be a good idea.
It was not a real company.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm like, well, I want to be a front-end developer. So I went on an interview. They took me to Boston to talk to their client. I was all, I felt all cool and ended up not taking the job because it was .NET. I don't know .NET. I don't want to be a back-end developer.
I think one of the greatest things about tech is there is so much you can do.
Yeah.
And I would give anybody who's listening permission to say, you are allowed to float around in tech.
Absolutely.
You should try different things. You don't have to get, I don't want to say pigeonholed, but just because you work on a certain stack doesn't mean you have to. I did a lot of .NET, one section of my tech life. I don't do any of it today. I don't really have a desire to. It has nothing to do with Microsoft or whatnot. I'm just happy in my little open source world now that we get to work in. And
yep.
There was a point where I was like the security person. And then I quickly realized I didn't want to do security.
Yeah.
And so I quickly got out. And so there are things that I intentionally leave off. Not that I have a resume anymore, but leave off the resume.
Sure.
Because I don't want to be associated with them. I don't.
I had to do that.
And I think that's fine.
Yep.
Just, you get skills. You get skills in this industry that are transferable, and you can do a lot, inevitably. You learn how to learn. But you may not want to learn or do a lot of those things. And that's okay.
And I think, so I also got a digital arts and culture certificate. So I learned about design. And that was what I had to take off my resume because I didn't want to be a designer.
There's 4 other designers.
Yeah. And I actually am a .NET developer now.
You identify as a .NET developer?
I do, yes.
I identify as Svelte and SvelteKit.
Yes. And I could not deal with that. I need a little bit of structure, and the JavaScript world is too much for me. But
oh, really?
Yeah.
How so?
It's like I can play music, but I need sheet music. I can't improv.
Okay.
And so with JavaScript,
so you feel like JavaScript is
improv.
Interesting. I've never heard anybody say that. Is it just because it's not typed? What? But what is? So? I don't understand.
I don't know. There's just so much you can do.
How did you even learn enough about yourself to even say that?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of wisdom there to be able to say, I don't like this because it's missing this like attribute of thing. Where I just look at it and say, whatever. It just does shit on a computer.
Well, when I worked at a bank, one of my bosses told me...
Where haven't you worked? Well,
I haven't worked for that.
There's always time if you would like to get paid peanuts.
When I worked at a bank, I was a bank teller, and my manager talked to me once in my review about the tone of my voice being rude.
I've gotten that a few times.
Well, and I was like, "What do you mean?" I try and be really friendly. I love people, and I found out that because I am who I am, I like to be direct. I like to get things out in the open. I'm not about sugarcoating things and going around things, and the tone of my voice cannot be great, but not in a mean way.
Yep.
But people take it that way.
Yep.
And that was in like 2008, and I have been working on that ever since.
Me too.
How's that going for you?
Not well. My bio used to be, I'm like a fine, cheap wine. The first sip is a little bit brutal, but, you just kind of ease into that bottle, and turns out it's all right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very direct person. I wear it all on my face. I wear it on my shoulder. I don't believe in wasting time and kind of sugarcoating things. I don't. I'm not saying that there's not a place where you can use different words at times and whatnot, but I also swear too much, and there's a whole lot of attributes that make me up. And when I left corporate America, I started to accept, like, oh, that's just me. Like, I could sit here and not swear or whatever. I realize that it may be off-putting to some, but it's also like, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm not disrespectful by any stretch, but I don't know. It's like tattooed into my DNA.
And my thing is, I don't feel like anybody needs to change who they are.
I agree.
But we can change how we interact with people.
I agree.
And the way I talk to you might be different than the way I talk to somebody else.
Yep.
And
I am very conscious of the fact that, hey, you can be super off-putting, dude. Like, slow your roll. I also don't know all the best ways to talk with others as well at times, but so we started with leveraging your experience.
Yes.
So where do we go from there? You get a job.
I get a job. I get like 6 jobs in a year because I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Especially today. Like, I don't even think that people like get looked down upon because you bounce jobs. That used to be a thing, like, hey, you're a job hopper.
Yep.
I'm not going to invest my time. But I think anymore today, it's just
I would say as a hiring manager now, it's a question.
Sure.
But, I mean, if you have a good reason for it,
yeah,
that's fine. If you
I
didn't know
agree.
what you did, fine.
Yeah. Especially if you're not interviewing for the same thing.
Right.
Like,
yes.
No, I didn't like that. Probably won't like it here either.
Right.
But hey, I need a paycheck.
Yeah. So it was funny because I got a job that I thought was going to be front-end development. And it turned out to be migrating a website from SharePoint to Kentaco. Yeah. And it kind of flipped my world upside down, where I was building this website, but then I got to build custom stuff in .NET because, some companies don't invest in more than one person that knows how to do a website. So I got to do everything. And I'm still with Kentaco right now. So I don't work for Kentaco, but I use it at my job.
I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Oh. It's got its ups and downs.
I mean,
As does everything.
I was going to say, what doesn't? You work a lot with the school, right? How do you, excuse me, how do you see that things have changed?
So it's interesting because the kids,
And when I
They're
say
not that
school, I
young.
mean university.
Yeah. When I was there, so that was 2012 to 14, people didn't want to get into technology. And they were nervous. And it wasn't, I was pretty involved in Girls in Tech. I think that everybody should just be everybody. Why does it have to be Girls in Tech? Everybody needs help, but that's fine.
Well, I was going to add, there's no boys in tech.
That's what I was going to say.
I mean,
now
as
it's like the
somebody
cool
who
thing.
has tried to, I would even go as far as to say, if there was one, it would be looked down upon that there would be a men's group doing that.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't. I think it's needed. I don't necessarily mean men in tech or whatever. Just the fact that there should be some men who support one another in this, and that is non-existent whatsoever. And I'd be surprised if it ever happened. But in 2012 to 2023, I've had one problem at that conference, and I bet you can't guess what it is.
Nope.
Getting young men to speak on the family track. I can get young women all day long, and they are excited, and they are great, and we've hired 2 of them. Getting young men excited to do that, super rare.
Huh.
And it's been like that ever since the beginning. Now, I don't know if that's a age, boys, like the difference between a boy and a girl, and maybe one's more outgoing and not, for the family structure that's around it. But it's been pretty hard.
But they speak on the technical track, obviously.
No, you mean the professional side?
Yeah.
The young?
Yeah.
Like sub 18?
Oh, you're talking
I'm
kids.
talking about kids.
Oh,
young,
got it.
Young,
Okay.
young. Yes.
Huh.
The 8 to 18.
That's interesting.
Always been that way.
Huh.
And now that I said that, look around and see how many young.
There are not a lot.
I'm not trying to make this like we need diversity in all things in life, right?
Yep.
I think it's always been interesting for me to see that. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know. Things change later when boys become not so stupid. But it's a gap. I mean, I think it's a gap that's worried me, that there's an imbalance here as well.
It's interesting.
Now, I've had a few conversations with some folks in Wisconsin who told me I was crazy and that this is not a problem. We need to invest. All money should be invested in women. And I was like, that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective, that you want to invest all chips in youth education in one segment of a demographic. But it was an argument many years ago.
Well, and that's my thing. We need to invest in everyone.
Yeah.
Not
The people who are rightly interested in the thing.
exactly. Yeah.
And create exposure for people who don't know that they even were interested in the first place.
Yep.
But back to school.
Yes.
So people weren't interested in tech.
They weren't interested in starting anything for tech. So I became the president of the student organization, which was very weird as a 28-year-old at a college, but I did it because I wanted to be involved.
It's okay, creeper.
No.
Hey, you were the president.
And people would do stuff. They would come to things, but they wouldn't talk. They wouldn't.
Oh.
It was very non-social.
Interesting.
And when I go back to the schools now, I kind of feel like it's the exact opposite. That everybody's very social, but thinks that everything's going to be fine, so they don't have to worry about what they're doing.
Interesting. Do you think social media plays a role in any of that?
Social media is such a funny thing.
Understand.
It can be amazing.
Or a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, attention spans are shorter.
Yep.
So.
I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
Yeah. Squirrel.
We've long had a gap with the amount of people in tech. This has come up a few times in the past few days about, there's a lot of layoffs going on.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's a lot of people that can't find enough people to fill positions.
Right.
I mean, I know you all have a bunch of job openings at the moment.
Yep.
It's an interesting world. This continues to happen over and over again. And there was at one point I was talking with somebody in UW about the graduation rates and how they really for tech have been on the decline for quite a while, and getting folks into computer science and all that has been on a decline. And I think there's probably a couple factors that are one of like, what do you really offer? Do you need to get a computer science degree in the first place?
Right.
Do you need to get a $200,000 computer science degree? Another problem.
Yes.
And I had when we were in Texas, I had an interesting conversation that, would a better path for somebody in tech be go to some kind of, I don't want to say boot camp, but like a more formalized, shorter program, not university, but like let's get some practical skills.
Right.
Put you in an apprenticeship, like corporate experience, to where you were able to take some of your practical and see it in the market.
Yep.
But then go to university and get the theoretical and how does it all really work to where you can properly design. And now you've had some groundwork to say, oh, I get why you do this. Now let me learn and really expand upon how do we take this to the next level and really apply it. I thought it was brilliant. I don't know that really fits in all walks in life, but it's an interesting experience or an interesting thought.
Yeah, UWM actually has a class called Non-Prof IT, and that's what they do. It's
boot camp, like
it's a project. So it's a semester-long internship, and they do an entire project. They work with a nonprofit in Milwaukee, so they don't charge them for what they do. So
they're building tech for a nonprofit?
Yeah, and they're matched up with mentors from places in Milwaukee.
Sure.
So like I'm a mentor for it.
Sure.
So and they get to do like site visits. So it's kind of like that, but it's at the end.
Sure. Yeah, as somebody who used to do not-for-profit work like that, I'll save that for another day. The worst thing is like leaving a not-for-profit with like a thing that you built, and then you're like, cool, you got this shiny website, isn't it great? You have nobody to actually upgrade this thing. You have no clue how that thing works.
Yeah.
Then you left them in a worse position than when you started.
Oh. That's what I would do if I won the lottery.
Give away your time?
Yeah. For nonprofits and small businesses. I'm big on small businesses.
How do you define a small business? This is an argument I get into quite a bit. I shouldn't say argument. Carrie and I go back and forth on it. What does small business mean to you?
It's up to the business, I think. I mean,
I know, but what does it mean to you? I'm curious how you define small business.
Someone who is super, super passionate about something but doesn't always have the help they need.
What if that is a 100-person company? That's still a small business?
No.
What if it's two people with $2 million in revenue?
I've never ran into that problem.
I'm just curious. It's an interesting thought exercise.
It's usually been I've helped a lot of my friends that want to start their own company, be like a business consultant with them. I've had my own company a few times, so.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, not a real company, but.
It's a real company if you say technically. May not be at the revenue that you expected. Right. Still a real company.
Yeah. So
comes with all the real taxes and paperwork and filing and
payment plans.
Okay. Yep. So you've had a few companies.
Yeah, and so I've just had experience with marketing, and because I've done a lot of volunteer for marketing, because I used to want to be social media, because who doesn't?
A mobile developer who runs a social media agency.
Yeah.
You have really done a lot of shit.
Well, yeah. You've
really traveled the globe to say, where do I want to land?
And I'm not there yet.
Yeah? How do you know that?
I don't want to do a dev anymore.
How did you get to that? I think it's great that you know that, but how did you know?
Every time I go to work and I don't have meetings all day, I'm bummed.
Okay.
Because I have to do development.
So you really like the people aspect of it.
Yeah. Being able to help other people is just awesome. Like when I see somebody on my team do something that they wanted to and they didn't think they could, I'm done. I'm good. The week can be over.
It's cool. So you're here at that conference.
Yep.
What would your... I know that you and I have shared many conversations about your experience here and how you got involved in it. What would you share with somebody else?
Walk outside of your bubble. Do something that scares you. Whether that's talking to somebody you don't know, sitting at a table full of people you don't know, do an open space. Go build marshmallow buildings.
So what did you do here this year or this time that followed in that spirit?
I stood on this stage.
And you did well.
Oh, it wasn't horrible.
No? And it can be better.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone can be better.
Yep.
I wasn't great this morning. It can be better. I think it was awesome that you did it. I think it was awesome that you brought it to it. And, for those listening, the it is the fact that you said, hey, we should start the conference essentially with a session about the conference so that you know how to take advantage of the thing that you just stepped into, which I think is brilliant. And I often think we often get so locked into our own thoughts, we forget to kind of step out and take intake from others.
Yeah.
When we first had the signboards, if you look at the first 3 years, they're just the adults. And It was my son and daughter at the time. Afterwards, we were having dinner, and they were so mad that they couldn't sign the signboards. And I was like, right. It didn't even dawn on me. It was just an oversight, if you will. And so then the family signboards came in. And now I look back and go, why do we have two separate ones? I mean, in part space, but there really should just be one, right? There is no, I'm looking down and there's kids sitting at a table right there, right? There isn't really a separation, so.
No.
But now that we got 12 of them and they all line up real nice in the grid, there's going to keep being two. OCD says,
yeah,
we're going to keep that going.
Well, and I had somebody come up to me after the talk and said, I made sure I was here on Monday just for that.
Oh, really?
Thank you so much.
Well, that's awesome. Well, now you're stuck doing it every year.
I am okay with that.
Okay.
And he told me that he's so nervous that he didn't want to go to an open space And he's like, but you said I could do it, so I'm hosting one.
Wow. Wow. How does that like level of impact make you feel?
I told my husband, I'm like, this was a complete success. I mean,
Yeah.
if I helped that one guy, that's good. I'm great.
What do you? I mean, I don't disagree. I always, I love that. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do for the community and being involved. It's always lovely seeing you, and
You as well.
you've been to Texas and Wisconsin, and
Yep.
just keep on keeping on. I love it.
The thing that I'm taking out of this conference is I'm committing to bridging the gap.
Into what?
Bridging the gap, my community.
Okay.
Committing to that. Taking this year to prioritize.
Well, that'll push us to continue to work that muscle. So,
And I'm here to help you do that as well.
but you don't like to do development.
But I will, because that's what you need. Unless
No.
it's svelte, and then I won't.
You're leaving. You exited the building again. You put your foot in and you step back out. You're like, I could, but I'm not.
But I could bridge that gap and
You can
find
bridge
you
it.
somebody.
Yeah, I'll go find you something in this very niche thing
Yes.
for peanuts.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I look forward to it, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.